What is up, everybody? Thank you so much for checking out the show, checking out the video. Make sure you hit the like button, all that kind of good stuff. Listen, I'm going to jump into it here. I'm on my way for a run. So we're going to make it do what it do, right? Make sure you get your exercise and all that kind of good stuff, right? All right, so the other day, I had a fiery episode there of a live, and I wanted to kind of clear some stuff up about that. I was not exactly happy about it. I mean, it's good for, clickbait or watch views and all that kind of stuff, but I was not happy. It actually kind of bothered me. So here's the things that I just wanted to address some of the stuff, right? So I did not in particular set that young lady up, if you know what I'm talking about, the live episode about being tricked. I did not trick her. I did not set her up. Most people, when I reach out to them, if they agree to come onto the show, will ask, what questions I'm going to ask, because they don't want to be ambushed and stuff. So I sent her a couple of questions that I was going to ask, and I tell every one of my guests I usually shoot from the hip, and that's exactly how I write my emails. I usually shoot from the hip, but here are the topics I want to discuss. I told her I wanted to discuss the video that she made, and talk about this idea of being tricked. I was upfront about that, right? So that was that. I do reach out. Let me just say this. I reach out to a lot of people, and here's why I'm not happy about how it turned out, because I reach out to a lot of people, and a lot of times people are polite, like, no thanks, whatever, whether my platform is too small or whatever, right? And I'm not happy because of how that turned out, and I don't want. And what people usually do is they will go back, if they agree to it, or before they agree to it, they will go and look at other interviews, as she did, and will say, okay, this guy's good or not, or platform's too small or whatever. I don't know what, or maybe sometimes they're just too busy. But I'm always appreciative of those who do decide to come on. I wanted to be out there, what I do and how I do. I don't do hit jobs, even though this came off like one, which I'm not happy about. But it was not my intention to do a hit job. It was not my intention to embarrass her. It was not my intention to do any of that. I just wanted clarification as to what she was saying and why she was saying it. And why I'm not happy about how it turned out is because I don't want somebody else to look at the video and like, oh, this guy's a monster. This guy does hit job. This guy does whatever. Wasn't my intention. So that's really what upset me about that. But listen, I thought we ended up, if you watch it, we ended up being cordial after all that. I did reach out to her via email and through my Instagram. To this day, as I record this, she has not responded. So it is what it is. I am not an antagonistic person. These guys don't. I'm not an antagonistic person. I'm not, that's just not me, my nature, my attitude, and all that. Taking some heat from that for some people being so nice or whatever. But I really want to have good conversations. And the conversation I wanted to have that I think we got around to in the last 10 minutes or so was about, what do we do about fixing this, right? If there is a tricking that has occurred, who tricked you? And what do you do about the tricking? And I think, and I believe me, I believe that something has happened of a sinister nature to both of us, male and female, black males and females, and we got to figure that out collectively. We got to understand, and I really wish you would have been able to articulate better. We got tricked. I had Diane Stewart on, one of the best interviews I did, in my estimation, because she was able to articulate verbally and through her book that there was intentional walls and barriers set up to keep us separated. And we have to figure that out. We have to hear it, understand it, and figure that out and move accordingly. So I just wanted to, kind of address that a little bit. That's too much money there. So that's really what I wanted to address, and what my purpose was. Now, also, let me say this, because I said some things. I had some stuff prepared. She talked about my PowerPoint presentations. I didn't show a lot of them because it was not my intention to it was not my intention to, continue down that road. But once I figured out she was getting frustrated and stuff, I mean, there's no sense in me pulling out all these different numbers. But, depending on how gangs are defined, Hispanic men or Hispanics are the number one per members of gangs, right? And I said on the show that I think it's white males because I don't like how gangs are defined, in all honesty. And the reason I asked her about her definition, and because she works in the gangs, they do the type of studies, research as a psychoanalyst. I'm assuming that they would tell her, okay, you got to figure out why these guys join gangs and this, that, and the other. So I talk about this. This is all training, right? So my point in asking her that was, okay, well, once she should have been able to give me a definition, and when she would have given me a definition, I would have been able to say, I don't like that. I don't like that definition, and I don't like that definition, whether you look at the Webster's dictionary or whether you like, well, let me say this. I don't have a problem with the definitions, no matter where you get it from, FBI, Webster's dictionary, or whatever. But I don't like its application, because when they don't take a look at white domestic terrorists, who are by definition gangs, they don't include them. To my knowledge, they don't include them in that. And I can say that because when we look at homegrown domestic terrorists, they are the number one threat. They just had a report that was taken down from the Department of Justice, from the DOJ. There was a report up there saying, from 2024, saying that the number one threat to the homeland security is white domestic terrorists, or white nationalists, white Christian domestic terrorists, all this kind of stuff. And right, they have committed in the last couple of years the most terroristic activities. Right, and if you're going to define a gang as those who engage in, which is 2, 3 or more persons, and gather together around a central idea, and those ideas can be political, violence, racial. Right, if you really take a look at that definition, then that's white domestic terrorists. That's why I said it's white people all day. But even if you went to the other place, National Institute of Justice, I think, the youth gang centers or whatever, right, their definitions, right, it's still Hispanic males. So no matter who it is, it's not black men. So again, my point is, you got to stop bashing and beating down black men. Got to stop bashing and beating down black men. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. We get that. We all know that, right, within our community. But where we're not, don't attribute ideas and falsehoods to us when they're clearly and demonstrably untrue. Right, I got some other, I probably was putting up a bunch of statistics about out of wedlock birth rates, and et cetera, right? So again, I don't want this to be a situation where we are looking at each other and just having this ill will towards us. I really don't like that. But one of the things, and again, if this is a tricking, then we have to understand that we were tricked, who did the tricking, and understand and get to the real numbers and all that. I was also, you got to take credit and responsibility sometimes. And I was also incorrect about my numbers, about education rates. So I'm going to put those up on the screen, right? It's difficult to get all these numbers because they're constantly changing, right? Who's in school, who's out of school, this, that, and the other, right? So some of these numbers are just difficult to have, even prison incarceration rates, right? Some of the stuff, right, about prison incarceration rates, education rates, you just can't get even probation or parole rates, right? You can't get the accurate numbers, right? And again, one of the reasons I don't like talking about mass incarceration and how it affects the black family is because a lot of this mass incarceration was vastly over policing, people just taking plea deals. We also know that a vast, how many people have been black men have been wrongfully accused and therefore took deals just to get in and out, and now they have these records attached to them. And in my opinion, I talk about this when I teach a class about rehabilitation, reintegration and rehabilitation. Is why would a felony in your past, if you committed a felony when you were 20, let's just say you stole a car, joyriding, or even did something like that, and now 15 years later, I mean, you've done your time. Why would that be? Why is it? I'm asking a question really, like, why? Why is that a black mark against you for the rest of your life, right? These are all things that are discussed in the criminal justice system, right? Why are we holding it against somebody 15 years later, now they're 35, they matured, right? They may have a kid or two, maybe they started their own lawn care business or their own home moving business. I know I had a friend like that, right? He started up a business of emptying out foreclosed on homes and stuff, right? That was his business. Dude had a mark on his record. Why would that dude be ineligible for marriage, right? So these are all things we have to discuss. And so, when we continue to disparage black men along these lines, it creates a really, really bad and unfortunate picture as to what we're dealing with and what we're going through. And again, the education piece. If black men in general are making more money than their women, in general, why is he being disqualified because he doesn't have a bachelor's degree? Right? So we got to take a look at all this, and that to me is part of the tricking. Whether it's social media that's tricking ladies and saying, "Oh, I gotta have this, I gotta be able to take I gotta go on 3 vacations a year, 3 2-week vacations a year, and you can't date me unless you can get up and go, and you gotta have this, that." This is the tricking. So again, I wish that she would have been able to articulate who tricked you, how you were tricked, and what we do about this tricking, because it's a trick to say, man, this man works a 9 to 5 and I can't. And because he works a 9 to 5, I can't, and he can't go on vacation. Therefore, he's ineligible for marriage. I mean, if you think that way, you have been tricked. If you think that way, you have been tricked. Right? So I wanted to have a conversation. At least we can have an honest conversation about the numbers, what they really are. And I wanted to move, and my intention was to move that conversation to, here's what the actual numbers are, even though, okay, you misspoke. Just like I admitted I misspoke about some stuff, right? Thought, you think sometimes you misremember. And then when you get the real actual information, then, okay, what do we do about this, right? How do we come together and understand that, some of the stuff doesn't matter. A guy's educational status, or because he's blue collar, doesn't matter, or shouldn't matter, particularly if we're all in this place collectively. And then we get to that place of, we kind of understand, why and how we're separated, who separated us, and how we can work together to overcome some of these different obstacles. That was the point. That was how I laid it out in my brain, in my mind, how I was going to lay out this conversation. Let's get to the real numbers. Let's get to that. Who tricked you? Because I agree. I'm not disagreeing that there was a tricking going on. I'm not disagreeing about that. There was a tricking that occurred. Who tricked you? Why did they trick us? We understand today that we've been tricked. What do we do about that in order to overcome? What are the real numbers, right? Where we're last at, we got to take those L's and just say, okay, this, again, with the incarceration rates and this, that, and the other, right? It's not just about, just, this is why I don't like talking about it, because it doesn't give us a clear and accurate picture as to who's committing the crime. Number one, who's committing the crimes. They want to paint us as inherently and innately violent. But we know that there's been over-policing. We know that people have been arrested for no reason, taking plea deals because they wanted to get in. They don't want to sit behind bars, and that messes them up for life. We know this, right? And there's the innocent projects and the amount of exonerations that they've given. Now that we have DNA and people and eyewitness testimony, there's always been a problem, and all this different stuff that is talked about at length in the criminal justice world. So we got to take a look at that. And all that. So, and again, I'm not one of those who wants to be in opposition to my ladies. I want you to understand that there is a problem that has occurred, and what we need to do and what we need to do to fix that is something we need to work towards and for collectively. And understand that the black man is not your enemy. It did hurt me when she said, this is why I don't like talking, because we just don't see each other, we don't like each other. Well, there's attitudes. There's reasons for it. There's reasons for it that I wanted to dig into. Why are black women less elected? There's a lot of things, and she was not wrong about, we don't see eye to eye politically. Ebony K. Williams said that, and that's just a men and women thing today. There's more white women who are very more liberal than their white men. Yeah, so men and women in general across this whole United States are not seeing each other, politically, economically, academically, and socially. That we just don't want the same things. You take an average guy, he's going to want a woman who's a homemaker. Well, women don't want to be that anymore. So we're not seeing each other according to that level. We're not seeing, and that causes the rift politically. And women, now you're competing with the woman in your job, and instead of, and when she may be looking for for people on her level and her peers to form a bond with and be this particular power couple, the guys that she's working with may not necessarily be looking for that. So it's creating a dynamic, and it's really it's a dynamic in all of society, but it's really hitting hard and hitting home within Black communities, right? Then we got to work on our health, our overweightness, right? A lot of men who are successful don't like the hair. We don't want to hear that. We don't like the excessive makeup. We don't want to hear that. So there's a lot that's going on there that we got to figure through. And I wanted to kind of work through that because I don't disagree again that we were tricked, that there was a tricking going on. I don't disagree with that, but I wanted to get to what we do about that, and we just couldn't get there. So I would invite her to come back on. I did reach out to her, as again I mentioned. She has not responded to me. I'm not expecting her to. I understand that she might think that I thought that I did, again, I didn't set her up, even though she said that and all this, and people wrote that in the comments. No, I didn't. So again, I send out emails to everyone about what I'm going to talk about if they ask. Otherwise, I just tell them I'm going to shoot from the hip. So. We just have a conversation, and if people write books or they do stuff for a living, I'm assuming that you know about that. If you're going to have me on your show, my wheelhouse is is leadership. That's my wheelhouse. That's what my PhD is in. Actually, I think I have a couple of different wheelhouses, right? So my master's is in forensic psychology, so I talk about a little bit of psychology, particularly when it's involved the criminal justice system. That's why I try to take a look at numbers. I was a police officer for 24 years, so I take a look at criminology. I teach those classes, criminology, criminal justice. So I teach. So if you're going to have me on my podcast to talk about the criminal justice world, let's just wrap it up into that. But I don't know what I'm talking about, right? And if I'm going to make a video and you want to question me about my video about romantic stuff or relationship stuff, I'm going to do a little bit of research about that. And you tell me you want to have me on the show, I'm going to talk about this video that you made about the X, Y, and Z. I'm going to review the video, make sure my numbers are correct, probably read some ancillary stuff to make sure I'm up, and we can have a conversation. If I don't know something, I don't know. If I misspeak, I'm going to say, listen, I misspoke. I kind of spoke from the hip, and sometimes I do that, right? I don't script out these videos. I think I have a basic framework or outline in my mind, but I don't script out my videos. This is not AI. I do it, right? And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But sometimes I think, right? So sometimes I've had to go back and correct stuff and edit some stuff out because that's not that. I've edited out a lot of stuff. When I said it, I go back and look. I'm like, no, that's not right. So I edit it out. So I do that. But you gotta, and if she would have just said, listen, I just kind of just spoke, I would have moved on from, okay, here are the real numbers. Here's the real numbers about incarceration. Here's the real numbers about gang violence. Black men are more married than black women. And Black men en masse have less children than black women, particularly out of wedlock, but just less children. 66% of men who do have children have them in the home. All this, we could have talked about all that and said, okay, here are the real numbers, and we're getting and black men in particular getting a bad rap. So to start off the video talking about you've been tricked, this, that, and the other, and then next thing you know, you get into women, or start dumping on the men and saying get away from the men. And this is what bothers me about divesting. This is what I want to leave this off here. This is what bothers me about divesting. What bothers me about divesting, and divesting is the idea that all black men are dusty and that all of them are no good, and I'm going to go out there and date a white man. But if you understand the history of this country, and how black men have been targeted, harassed, lynched, denied jobs, denied access into unions, all this stuff that has happened to, in particular to black men, according to, Jim Sedanius and I forget the exact term, minority male targeting of minority male hypothesis. I forget the exact name, how to say it, right? If you look at that, right, and it's been the minority males who have been targeted in societies, right? If you understand that, then why would you run to the man who targeted your own men? But that's a whole other psychological phenomenon that can be discussed for another day, and that's just what I just don't like about it. It's not if after slavery, black men didn't do anything, we just sat on our butts and didn't do anything, then I would say, yeah, I would agree. There's an issue here, and we didn't do anything. But that's not the case. After slavery, all the stuff, again, read Diane Stewart's and many other works, right? The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. You got to read these works and understand that black men have been targeted. Mass incarceration, right? The Black Code laws, essentially re-enslaving black men for no reason, for jaywalking or for vagrancy, right? Sticking them back on plantations and stuff, right? Burning down of all of our communities, all the communities that were burned down or placed underwater, right? Again, mass incarceration, the lynchings, right? Burning down our businesses, all this stuff that black men were doing. And now if there's a mindset that sets in with some people, some black men that says, we're not going to try anymore. What am I going to do? So I'm not saying that that's okay, and we still ought to be trying to move forward. But we have demonstrated throughout our history since emancipation that we are not these lazy bums. And if you take into consideration the over-policing, the direct lies that people have told, and everything that I talk about in the police world, the things that have happened to black men, you talk about incarceration rates, and black men have always received longer sentences, and all this stuff that we talk, right? So if you understand that, and this is why I'm so frustrated with academics, you should understand that. And then to say to yourself, I'm still going to run over here and date the guy who did it to you. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm not gonna, contrary to popular belief, I'm not gonna cry, or I'm gonna blame black men. I'm not blaming anybody, but the people who should be blamed. But the true matter is to take have their foot taken off our neck, right, and do whatever. And to some degree, I would say, okay, now we've got this little bit of freedom. I don't blame people for wanting to leave, to go to black men in particular, to say, listen, I don't want, right, this is a white supremacist country. Again, according to, I think Derek Bell or somebody else, right, he wrote a book about the permanence of racism. I try to put that screenshot up, right? It's never going to go away. And this is where we get Donald Trump. This is where we get the white nationalists. This is where we get Stephen Miller. This is where we get, this fawning over, the assassination of the guy the other day. This is where we get all this, because for whatever reason, I was listening to a podcast the other day. And it was talking about the reconciliation that they did in Germany. And you can't walk, 10 feet. I've never been to Germany. Well, I've been to Germany, but I didn't see what they were saying. I was in the really, really outskirts of Germany. But I guess in the downtown Berlins and stuff, right, there's plaques all over the place, describing how they had done the Jewish people wrong, and really took accountability for that. That has never happened here. And for whatever reason, they're just doubling and tripling and quadrupling down about it. We don't want black rule. Right? There's a clip by Megyn Kelly, the former Fox News lady, who was saying that, she, when she takes a look around and you can see the disgust in her face, she's like, and she just said, I just blame Barack Obama. We weren't talking about race until Barack Obama. He just couldn't get off of race.
Political, but I'm just going to be honest. We haven't felt like ourselves since Barack Obama. I just think he was such a slick snake. He was this affable guy who was like wearing good suits and looked the part and sounded the part and dressed the part, but was so divisive. in his messaging. The left, they look at you like when you say this, they don't know what you're talking about. It's like, because you don't pay attention to the other half of the country. You only pay attention to your absurd news sources, which spin and spin and spin to protect Democrats, especially if they're named Obama. He's the one who started to inject race where no one had been doing it. He's the one who started to use his pen and the phone to shove things down our throat that we didn't want. He's the one who shoved through an entitlement on our health care and our personal doctor visits that he promised he wouldn't mess with, and then he did, really hurting people, causing massive anger and open lies. He never missed an opportunity to twist the knife on the racial issue. He would do it subtly and in his own way, but it was very clear what he was doing. For the first time, we had a president who weighed in on legal cases before they'd played out. We never did that. That was a taboo that had never been crossed before him. And Donald Trump was the reason Barack Obama, reverse that. Barack Obama was the reason Donald Trump came about, that he was born as a political figure. They say Trump's divisive. He was the antidote. He was the answer to the divisiveness of Barack Obama. And we just haven't felt like ourselves for years now.
Okay, so when they were talking about the Willie Horton laws, when 92, when Rodney King was beating people, when he got beat by the police, and all the that riot, then that was all Barack Obama's fault. When Reagan was talking about the welfare queens, they've always talked about race, but Megyn Kelly, Megyn Kelly, and even Donald Trump, and I think a lot that there's a white, according to Carol Anderson, White Rage. Read that book. They have never, ever forgiven Barack Obama for being a black man in office. They just lost it. And they're running around on January 6th with Confederate flags, bringing them into the White House and all kind of stuff. Crazy. They just can't get over it. And they just won't do a racial reckoning. They just won't do it. They just won't do it. These people, from the time that they were kids, from emancipation, they were mad about what was happening from the Reconstruction, the end in 1877 to the Jim Crow laws, and the final nail in the coffin with Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896. They were just mad. They were just mad at us erecting statues. That's when you get all that stuff, right? Erecting statues in the 1920s, 1910s, 1920s, all over the place. They didn't want to do a racial reconciliation. They just saw us, and that's where we get the lies, and they're tricking you. Black men are lazy, and they don't want to do anything. All they do is have babies out of wedlock, and this, that, and the other. So, and again, if you understand that history, you understand this is why we got to educate our own people. We got to educate our own people. And if you understand that history that they're trying, they're trying to whitewash and they're trying to erase and they want to change. If you understand that history, even a semblance of it, and then then open up your mouth and say, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to date this guy." Go ahead, enjoy it. And to the black men who say, "Go ahead and enjoy it," or "I'm leaving. What am I going to continue to fight for this thing for?" And really, when you understand the history of civil rights, when you understand the history of civil rights, it wasn't given because they had come to this aha moment, had this epiphany. It came because they had TVs, and for the first time, the world could see how they were treating us. And they wanted to, being the United States and the administrations, wanted to be those who were seen as the shining hill in the city and all that. And, you want to go around the world spreading democracy in the 1950s and so 1940s, 50s, after World War II. You want to do this stuff. But here's how you treat your black men at home. You lynch them. You lynch them in their uniforms. In their army and military uniforms, you lynch them. But you want to tell us how to do it. And that's why they had to change everything. That's where 1954, you get the Brown versus Board education system change, right? Separate, no longer separate but equal, right? Because of that. Then you get Dr. King in the 60s with his nonviolent movement, showing the world we just want to vote. So anyway, I made this long enough. This is what I wanted to say to her and to Dr. Chiaku. It was not my intention to do that, but, and I felt bad about it, but you know, I got to come with it. You got to come with it. People who have titles, understanding they have to live up to it. You understand you have to live up to your title. You're a senator, a congressperson, whether you're a judge, a lawyer, a doctor, a medical doctor, right, a teacher, professor. You got a title. You got a title. You got to live up to that. So, all right. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Hit me in the comment section. Much love and peace.